Chris and Chris Talk Movies.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Chris Ferry, and of course, this is my co-host.
My name is Chris Huddleston.
And today we are both very excited to be talking to you about the 1991 horror thriller, Frailty. Do you have a synopsis for us, Mr. Huddleston?
I do. It's a 2001.
Oh, never mind. Only 9 years off.
Yeah, that's okay. A mysterious man arrives at the offices of an FBI agent and recounts his childhood, how his religious fanatic father received visions telling him to destroy people who were demons. And it stars Bill Paxton, and he was also the director of it. And it also stars Matthew McConaughey. And I think we should say this is one that it's kind of a mystery thriller horror thing. And if you have not seen this, I don't really think we can talk about it without spoiling it. So if it's something that you are interested in, I would say just go into it blind and, come back and listen to this later if you like.
I double that because you had said to me, have you ever seen it? I said, no. And you said, don't watch the trailer. I said, okay. Yeah. So I went into it. I knew Bill Paxton was in it and Matthew McConaughey was in it. But other than that, I knew nothing. I think I knew that Bill Paxton directed as well. But that's as much as I knew. And I was glad watching it that I didn't know any more than that.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop the audio of the trailer in when we're done recording here. I haven't even watched the trailer. I don't know. Does that spoil it? Does that ruin it? Even playing the audio?
I don't know. I didn't watch the trailer, but I just knew it. And the funny thing is, we can get to this later, but I saw this in the theater when it originally came out and had not seen it since then. And I couldn't remember how it ended. So it was kind of a surprise for me too. So, but yeah, I don't know how much but I definitely think this is a good movie to just go into, not know much about it,
Absolutely,
and just kind of go with it.
That being said, we're going to talk all about it. So if that sounds interesting and exciting to you, I can't believe I'm going to say this. Please don't turn us off. Listen to a different episode.
Yeah.
And then watch Frailty and come back and we'll talk all about it because that's what we're about to do right now. So I thought this movie was bonkers.
Yeah.
And it kind of kept getting more bonkers. Have you ever seen Bill Paxton in Big Love, the HBO series?
Yeah, I wasn't a regular viewer of it, but I watched a handful of episodes.
But this character of his made me think of that because it's before things get weird. He's a single dad, blue collar guy raising two boys, and he's sort of it's almost, it's set in the 70s at the time when this happens, because the Matthew McConaughey character is one of the sons, all grown up now. So the Bill Paxton stuff is flashback stuff to the 70s, but it was really like a 50s poster advertisement of a dad, like, firm but fair, loving, took a real interest in his boys, he offered to help one of the kids with his homework, never said the wrong thing, like clearly loved his two sons and they clearly loved him. And it was idyllic, didn't you think? And I just think of the Bill Paxton character in Big Love, because here's a guy who's a polygamist, has 3 wives, children, I think, by at least 2 of the wives, if not 3, and runs like a Home Depot, basically runs like a chain of fix it up your house stores. He's just the picture image of loving husband, dutiful father, engaged community member, local businessman on the town council, and then the underbelly of that show is that polygamy is illegal and it's not accepted by the mainstream Mormon church that he's a member of either. But it's not like he murders people in that one to get ahead. It's just he believes in a way of life that he's keeping a secret from everybody else. And And it's the same, like I don't have a Bill Paxton impersonation, but it's that same slow, deliberate, really earnest. Like Bill Paxton is just a naturally likable guy. He's got an open face and sincere, honest eyes. So, oh, we're going to get through this, buddy. You gotta, have courage in your heart. And you're just kind of like, man, who doesn't like Bill Paxton? So of course, in this one, he's a killer. But what's amazing to me about this performance and sort of perfect for Bill Paxton, a little too perfect. He's nuts. ... Question mark, is he? But he believes that he's had a vision from God, that an angel will show him who the demons are living amongst us, and his task is to destroy the demons. So he starts abducting and killing people, and including his two young sons in it. And I mean, his sons are like 8 and 11, maybe, right?
Probably, yeah. Mm-hmm.
8 and 12. And those scenes are really upsetting. They're really upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I know it's upsetting, buddy, but that we didn't just kill a person, we destroyed a demon. And you're just like, oh boy. Then there's this whole superstructure of the movie with McConaughey comes walking into the FBI and it starts sort of spilling his guts because they're hunting a serial killer and they've dug up some bodies. And he's like, I know who it is. It's my brother. So it's framed. There's a lot of exposition and voiceover, and that's the framing device for a movie that is mostly flashback. And then at the end comes back to present day and sort of ices the cake. Anyway, I'm doing a lot of talking. What was your hot take on it?
Yeah. So as I said, I saw this when it originally was in the theater, and I didn't remember a whole lot about it because it's been literally 20 years since I saw it, and had not revisited it on HBO or anything like that. Oh, and by the way, this is on HBO Max. So if you have HBO Max,
yeah, you're good to go.
Watch it for free. Don't have to pay for it. I had remembered this being, I remembered the gist of it, that it starts with McConaughey going into this FBI agent who's played by Powers Boothe, who gives a good performance, and I think McConaughey is good as well.
Yep.
And I had remembered that, and the only other thing really that I remembered was that the Bill Paxton character was, he said he saw these visions from God, and that some people are demons, and he's making the angel or God or whatever is telling him what people to kill, and he has this list. And so that was kind of all that I remembered. I remembered it, as you said, it's upsetting. I remember it being more upsetting than what it is. I think overall this movie I enjoyed it. I think it's good. I think the McConaughey parts play a little bit better than the Paxton and the kid parts, which is, as you said, that's the big chunk of the movie. We talk about this a lot on this show, kid actors, and these kid actors are okay. They're not horrible.
They're definitely not horrible. They're fine. They tell the story.
Yeah.
I wasn't rolling my eyes being like, oh, where'd you find these kids? Right. But it's not, nobody was, handing out awards.
Right. And that was what I would say is
a lot of heavy lifting acting wise, frankly. They really are. There has to do a lot of heavy lifting.
They have to cry, and there's a lot of emotion.
Yeah, I mean, the situation is complicated. Like,
yeah,
you're loving your father, but having your dad ask you to do this, literally murder people, is extreme. And I don't know how I would pull that off, frankly, at almost 50. But
yeah.
I would do research, and I have enough of life experience to like kind of tape something together. But for a kid who is probably 12 years old, or maybe 13 or 14, playing a couple of years younger, how you'd have any frame of reference?
No,
hard to. That's a big ask. But
yeah,
there's some scenes that are supposed to be hitting you in the gut, and you're kind of just like, I'm telling the story, but I'm not feeling it.
And even Paxton, I feel, and like you said, it's interesting. You know, he is such a likable guy, and as you said, the father, he's this very loving father, um, and you know, he's stern with them at times because especially the older boy is just like the dad is nuts and is pushing back, and you know, things kind of
This is
what's
wrong, Dad. Right?
yeah, you're killing people, these aren't demons, you know, this is, and the littler boy, and it's sad because this is how you would imagine a child that age probably would behave. Hey, my dad told me these people that are demons, and so they're demons, you know. um but the some of the scenes with
But the little kid also says, "I see it too." Like
right.
when he puts his hands on him, lays hands on him, they'll reveal themselves as demons, and they do that. The lens of the camera shows us that Bill Paxton is having an experience, right? He puts his hands on him, you know, he's seeing. But then we see it from the older sons, and nothing's happening, right? I mean, he's sort of convulsing, and the other person is sort of screaming in terror, as you would, right? If this guy
The psycho has kidnapped you,
right,
you know, tied you up and
with
stuff.
an axe, you'd be, you know, soiling your pants. So for most of the thing, we're seeing it through the older kid's eyes, which is like the dad is nuts, has had some sort of a psychotic break, right? And the younger brother is just going along with it. And he says, "I see it too." And, you know, and the older brother's like, "You're just, you know, you're just brainwashed. Like, you don't really, nothing is happening." He's like, "No, I really see it. Stop it." You know, and they have a brother argument, but they do plant that seed.
Yeah. And so I would say maybe the biggest criticism that I have of the film is that Paxton in those scenes, you know, he puts his hand on the person and it's like that, you know, that's when he realizes that they're demons. And that comes off kind of corny, you know, in those scenes I felt, but I don't know. So should we get into the ending now or
because here we are. So
you throughout the film, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but throughout the film, you are, you know, you're not, we never see demons or anything like that. You know, they just look like people. And so throughout the film, until the very end, as the viewer, you're left to wonder, does this guy just have a brain tumor or something, you know, like you said, some kind of a psychotic break, or is there a supernatural element to this?
Otherwise pretty even keel.
Like, yeah, he never
going to work or stops bathing himself or stops taking care of his sons. In fact, after the first thing, things get quiet for a while, and it's almost like he wakes the boys up in the middle of the night and tells them he had this vision and lays it all out for them, and they go to bed, and in the morning they wake up and it's so business as usual that the older son, who we believe McConaughey has told the FBI agent that he's actually the older son. So as we go through this, we're looking at the older son, and it's POV the older son, that's McConaughey. Turns out that there's a flippity flop on that. That's one part of the twist at the end. But so he's like, they're going to school, and there's all this, I think, pretty effective stuff of him being like, was that just a crazy dream? Like, that was so crazy and nobody's acting. And then so he drops them off at school. He's like, "All right, boys, have a good day." And they're like, "Okay, bye, Dad." And he's like, "Remember, don't tell anybody about what I told you last night."
Yeah.
And then the younger kid goes, "I won't, Dad."
Yeah. It is interesting watching it because, as you said, in no other way does he ever act like a person who has lost their mind, you know.
No, he swears up and down. It's just what he describes is so, and he says it so. "I had a vision, an angel visited me, you know, and told me that we need to do these things, and I'm on a mission from God, and he'll give me the names, and I'll write down the names, and those are the people we have to destroy the demons, not kill people. They're not people, they're demons. We got to kill the people. And the list of names that they get is kind of all over the board. The first one's a nurse, and then the other one's just some older guy in a parking lot. It's not like it all fits a type, like there's some serial killer, whatever. They're apparently random. What we sort of discover later is that what Bill Paxton is seeing is he doesn't see the person transmute into some sort of a demon. He sees the crimes that the person has committed. So we end up sort of revisiting his laying hands on the nurse's forehead and sees that she's killed someone, slit someone's throat, right? And the old guy from the parking lot that they get is a pedophile who abducts kids. Horrible stuff, but there's nothing that they never appear. There's no supernatural. They never appear inhuman.
Right.
They've just done horrible things. And I'm trying to milk this out as long as I can. But so the twist that we get to at the end is it's McConaughey reveals he is not the older brother who doubted. He is the younger brother who believed that he did see it all along, and he's come to the FBI agent with an ulterior motive. I'll show you where the bodies are, and he takes him to the rose garden where all the bodies are, because the FBI agent is also a demon, and he's brought him there to kill him, and he lays hands on him, and he's murdered his mother. And the FBI agent says, "How did you know?" And he says, and it ends with McConaughey is a small town sheriff or something. And the craziest thing about this movie is after watching a man and include his kids in butchering a series of people, with an axe, and punishing his older son, like, God, the angel told me you're a demon, but I can't bring myself to kill you. So I'm going to lock you in a subterranean basement for days and days and days until you have a vision, until you see the truth. I mean, Old Testament stuff, right? And then it turns out that we also discover that the older brother apparently was a demon, and we see McConaughey go to his house and kill him too. And the twist is so bonkers that all along, Paxton and McConaughey, they were right. The movie tells us they are having visions directly from God. The people they are killing are demons, evil, have committed, so it's this sort of vigilante justice. And what you get at the end is McConaughey with this sort of self-satisfied, almost right out of Dazed and Confused, this sort of smug, like, I know right from wrong because God is showing me who the sinners are, and I do what's needed to be done. It's this crazy right-wing vision of a good guy with a gun, right? I mean, it is this crazy right-wing idea that, God will tell us who the sinners are, and we can't wait for the courts and the Jew lawyers to like double talk us out of justice. You just need to take it into your own hands and destroy the demons. And my mind went, and it made me wonder. And then I thought of Big Love, and I thought, is Bill Paxton like a religious nut? Is he one of these guys that like believes in the literal God that talks to people like it's a dude with a beard who's like, you must kill the grocer now? I mean, what? I mean, the message of this movie, and I know it's trying to do an M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end. It was like, oh, it was real. But when you take a step back and you look at, so what is this thing telling us the reality of this movie is that there is demons and the devil and God talks to us, and there are angels, and all of that's literal and real. And people who do evil things, it's not complicated. They're not human. They're demons. That's who does bad stuff, demons. And you're not killing them. You're destroying them. And, those of us who feel like we know the difference, and you're right, because it's just insane.
Mhm.
Am I overreacting to this?
No, no. So I had some of the same thoughts as you throughout the film prior to getting to the ending. So I thought, so one thing that I like about this movie is, and I know I've talked about this before on the show, there is a big trope that's developed in the last couple of decades that has just been used so many times in thriller type movies and horror movies, where there's a monster or a demon or there's a killer or whatever, and we find out at the end that the main character, it's all in their head, they're crazy. And so this is kind of the flip of this,
right?
Yeah, because throughout it you think, oh, this guy is crazy, and then at the end you realize, no, he wasn't crazy, he was, this was all real. But up until the end, and you find out that these demons are apparently real, I was thinking really along the lines of you, that this movie is probably more relevant today than it was 20 years ago, because it just feels like our society has just gotten so much more insane since you kind of think back a little bit at like 2001. Now I don't know if this would have been before or after 9/11 when this was released, but the early 2000s are almost kind of an idyllic period in a way compared to what we have now, because you have this was making me think of like the Q type people, where I mean, you can, in 2001 watching this movie, I think probably sitting in the theater I was thinking, yeah, this is kind of far-fetched that somebody would just do these killings, not like it's impossible, but you've got people, you have the Q type people who think that there are these satanic people that are drinking kids' blood and all this kind of stuff, and if you really believe that, if you believe that's real, that could drive somebody to do something like this. Hey, I got to go and take out these demons that are killing, these satanic vampires that are killing children or whatever. But I as far as your question of Paxton, if he was some kind of crazy super religious person, I don't know. He didn't write this, he was the director, but somebody else wrote it. So maybe he just thought it was an interesting premise or whatever, but I don't know.
I liked the movie. I don't agree with the movie, but I liked the movie. My quibbles with it, like I liked it enough that I've got my Chris Ferry quibbles, TM. We got to start branding, but I liked it enough that I want to nitpick with it a little bit. I think that somebody who is as emotive as Bill Paxton would have done a better job of, and I know he's a blue collar guy, he's a mechanic or whatever, and that's telling the story. So Bill Paxton either needed to more effectively act less capable of being communicative, or he needed to, he just sort of expected his kids to take it at face value. He'd be like,
yeah,
I know it seems crazy, but you have to believe me. And that's about as deep as it went. Right. A man who loved his kids this much would really, you wouldn't just lock your son in a basement. You'd make an effort to try and make them see the truth of it somehow, and I know the younger kid says he saw it too. So there's that kind of reinforcement, but the whole thing strains plausibility at the concept level. And it's good enough that it comes close enough. Because all along you're just supposed to be horrified that this guy is doing this, and his sons who love him are sort of dragged along with it. And it is really effective. It's really upsetting, those scenes. And it's not a gruesome movie. There's no, he kills people with an axe, but it's not.
They cut away, so you're not seeing somebody's head get split open or something.
You see him going, you don't see the axe splitting someone's head open, which is back in vogue now. I'm watching shows like The Boys, and there's a lot of body horror that they do with CGI that's literally it's more like Bone Tomahawk, where you just see what it looks like when a body comes apart. And that's a flavor, but this is not that movie. This movie is more psychological. And like, can you imagine how traumatizing that would be if you thought your dad was crazy, but you loved your dad, but he was killing people, but you couldn't bring yourself to turn him in. You know what I mean? And I thought the movie is extremely effective in that regard. You still with me?
Oh yeah. I'm here. Yeah. I thought you froze. You must have thought I had frozen. I think we're both.
No, I just thought I thought it was extremely effective in that regard, and it was just the twist was a little unwieldy, and the taste it left in my mouth of like God and angels are real. I mean, I have a kind of a bias against that because that's not how I see the universe. I don't believe. Sure. Big guy with a white beard and
and the angels and demons are appearing to people. And just to be clear, so the movie definitely is saying that all this is real, right? I mean, there's no little wink or something at the end that
I didn't see a wink. I mean,
the demons were real, right?
The whole time.
And they even have a thing.
FBI guy, and why did you come to me with this? Because you're a demon and I'm going to kill you. And I want you to basically walk with me to the place where I'm going to bury you.
And they even go so far as to do a thing at the end. So in one of the flashbacks, when they get this this old man from this parking lot of a supermarket who, turns out to be a pedophile, the older boy is saying, hey, what if a security camera sees us or whatever? He said, oh, God will make us invisible.
Protected, right.
Yeah. And then at the end, we see where McConaughey had been in this FBI office.
He walks into the FBI field office, right? There's cameras and they're reviewing the cameras and his face is all like staticked out, like the Ring or something. It's like, magically God
made him invisible on camera,
protected him. So I mean, I think that's the funny thing is it's a horror movie, but at the end it's like a religious propaganda film. It's like, no, there are holy warriors walking amongst us, anointed, and they are small town sheriffs. So it's like, yes, they pulled that guy over in a traffic stop for nothing and they shot him in the back of the head. He happened to be a black man, but it wasn't because he was black. It's like, you wouldn't understand.
He was a demon. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's illegal. And it's like, you don't understand the ways of God. I mean, in its own way, that's horrifying, but I don't think the film is going for that third layer of like, because the film establishes in the universe of the film that is real.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I should probably read some more about, I don't think this film got enough attention that too many people care. But I wonder if there was a real agenda behind this, or if it was just like, oh, this will make a neat twist.
Well, I have nothing against religion or faith.
Mm-hmm.
I have my beliefs and I respect other people's rights to have their beliefs 100%. I think what I find a little bit, and why I think this is so chimes with this day and age, is the concept of rule of law, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have, imperfect though it may be, we are trying to have a democracy that operates under the rule of law in which everybody has a dispassionate hearing. You look at evidence, right? And in this movie is like, well, no, God will tell certain people who the bad people are, and then they will kill those people or destroy those demons, because that's God's plan. And the rest of us just need to accept that. And I'm like, well, you don't. I mean, that's like, am I a demon because I'm not seeing visions, or is God just not chosen me to be one of his holy warriors? Like, that's incredibly exclusive,
right?
And I do feel like there's a lot of that going around these days, and I certainly don't think that some of the people claiming impunity are actual believers themselves. But it's kind of like, well, you wouldn't understand it because God hasn't told you the truth.
Yeah, I think, like I say, I think if this film were released now, I don't know if like dangerous is the right word, but I think it would be much more relevant to what's happening in the world today, where it seems like because you and I look at this and it's just like, it still comes off as really crazy, but maybe there would be people that would watch this and think, oh yeah, that seems okay. They're killing the demons, Yeah.
It'd be like, right, of course, that's validation.
Yeah. And I don't know that 20 years ago it seemed like those people were more in the fringe, and you know what I mean?
Well, we didn't have half of our government, sort of positing that kind of thinking was somehow a legitimate
Right.
interpretation of.
And we didn't have social media where people can get together on these kind of ideas and help to spread them. But these movies, as I recall, I don't think you could say there's a message to them necessarily, but and it's been a long time since I've seen these. But have you seen any of the prophecy movies with Christopher Walken?
Yes, but it's been a long time, and I'm not sure that I could. He's actually the villain, right? Isn't he?
He's a villain. I think he's a fallen angel, as I remember it. But it's a whole thing it's a little more fantasy than what this is, in that it's kind of this battle between the angels and the demons, and they're coming down to earth and stuff, or it's bad angels versus good angels or something.
I think I saw some of it a while ago, but I don't remember.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of playing around a little bit with some of this idea, but it's much more, they're not really what I would think of as, they're not presenting a religious view other than just angels are real, but it's not
right.
This kind of a presentation. But
we did Con Air not too long ago, and I watched a YouTube thing on a couple of people. It's funny breaking down Con Air, but they're like, oh, this is a right-wing screed, really, when you look at Con Air, that each of these villains represents some liberal aspect of society, and that the Nick Cage character represents the sort of righteous, God-fearing military, and on and on and on. They really peel the layers away, and they go into how that's Michael Bay, right?
I think so, yeah.
How the director is this right-wing nut job, and how this movie is when you look at it in that context, it's a thinly veiled, like each of this was Cyrus the Virus, and they really, it's funny, but they really go into like, and then it's two movie reviewers who started like, oh, Con Air's awesome, and by the end they're like, oh, Con Air is this depressing screed.
It's interesting that you bring that up, and we're a little far flung from this, but I think it's relevant to what you're talking about there. I saw the new Top Gun this week.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and was not. So I went with family, and they were like, I was like, I don't know how you feel, but I was never a fan of the original Top Gun.
I haven't seen it in so long. I remember it was, it was adrenaline, and it was entertaining. Those jets flying around.
So I watched a little of the original, and it had been a long time since I had seen it.
I think
probably
I saw it when it came out.
Yeah, I saw it when it came out, and maybe saw it a couple times after or whatever. It's hard to watch now. It just seems really fake, and it's very corny. But anyway, so I went with, they're just like, hey, we're gonna go see Top Gun, good. And I was like, okay. And so went in, not excited about it at all. And it's really well done for what it is. The new one, and I read like there's no CGI in it, or very, very little CGI. It's all flying and everything. And it's a fun popcorn movie or whatever. Tom Cruise is very good. That's one thing about Tom Cruise. No matter what you think of him, he generally doesn't do poor films. You go and look through his filmography, and
Delivers.
yeah, he delivers on everything.
Movie star, and whatever else you say about the guy or his choices or Scientology, his personal life, but as a movie star, it's hard to argue that Tom Cruise does not pretty consistently deliver.
Right. And he's very good at, picking the right films, and they do it's enough homage to the original without it being
A reboot.
Too hokey, I guess. And the younger people in it are all good and everything. So all around, it's just really well done, for what it is. It's not, I'm probably not going to watch it again anytime, but
I heard that it's a better movie than the original one.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely, just based on, I caught a little bit of the original, watched like 20 minutes of it or something. I was just, this is like almost unwatchable. And by comparison, you definitely don't want to watch them back to back, because the new one is like the original. It's so clear when they're using green screens or blue screens or whatever, they use back then.
I don't
know. But at any rate, so we watched it in Marietta, Ohio. So a very middle America kind of place on a Tuesday, and it was packed. And, I saw this week. So it's already been out 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. And so just a very middle America audience, older people, younger people, they're laughing at jokes that I didn't think were funny, particularly, and but there's a meme. It's not really a meme. It was just somebody's tweet that has become a meme now. And it says, Top Gun's the #1 movie in the box office. And I don't know if you know or not, this may be a minor spoiler on Stranger Things, that they use the, is it Kate Bush, Running Up That Hill song. And now that's like the #1 song.
Any of that is crazy.
Yeah. And they're like, Top Gun is #1 song. And, Kate Bush has the Top Gun's the #1 movie, and Kate Bush has the #1 song. And we're enemies with Russia and all this stuff. Is Reagan back in office again or whatever? But so it just got me thinking, like, you have I read that, I don't know if this was true or not, but this was just some little blurb that I saw, that Matthew Modine was the original choice to play Maverick in the original Top Gun. And he turned it down because he said, this is just an advertisement for the military. And, he did Full Metal Jacket, which is an anti-war movie.
Yeah.
And, watching this new Top Gun, and I'm sure they're going to use it as recruiting material, for the Navy, because it makes it look really exciting, and that'd be fun, to be a fighter pilot. But I was kind of struck by that, where it's like, this is a clearly kind of a right-wing film. And I bet a lot of those people that I was sitting in the audience with are probably people who haven't been to a movie in a long time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's just liberal Hollywood, but this is, Tom Cruise is a weirdo, but he loves America or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't know what you think about that, but it just struck me as, this is very much a right-wing framing, and is it a coincidence that this is the number, and it's making a gazillion dollars,
right? And
we're just having all this kind of conservative movement of everything, it seems like, in our society,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, with Ukraine and everything else going on, the military will tell you, hey, we live in a world with walls, and those walls are protected by men with guns, right? Mm-hmm. Who's going to do it? You liberal milksop, you get to sit around and criticize, the men and women who are keeping you safe, because there's bad guys out there, and we're never going to eliminate war. We're never going to, and maybe, I mean, I don't pretend to be an expert. maybe that's true. I certainly know that the human species is always going to be jealous of what the person next door has, right? And the grass is always going to be greener. There's always going to be haves and have-nots. I don't believe we could ever get to a utopian society where everything is true,
No.
where everyone's needs are truly met. And even if we were, there'd be some people that feel they need to have more, and those that would be exploited. And, that's human nature. That's our fatal flaw. So maybe the end result of that is that there will always be conflict. And at a national scale, that requires a military. But we have the most bonkers military on the planet. I mean, the numbers are insane, and I can't quote you what it actually is, but it's something like we spend more on our military than the next.
Oh yeah.
X
The most recent budget is about 750 billion,
it's so and it's not just the military, but any organization will tell you this, that when you get an increase in budget, you do what you have to do to justify it, right? You can't let the budget go down. You can't be like, oh, well, we got $1 million last year, but we didn't spend it all, so we can do with 750. You need to figure out a way to keep it at least $1 million for the next year, or increase it somehow. And that's true of museums and nonprofits and everything else, because we are a capitalist society and it's profit driven. So the budget needs to constantly be going up and up. And I mean, there's a part of me that feels like, when one war winds down, we got to find another war to start, because we got this military money, man. North Korea fired some missiles, and South Korea, and we fired some missiles. I bet those missiles cost tens of millions of dollars each. We fired 8 missiles. Like, did we just fire $100 million into the ocean as saber rattling to be like, we still have missiles too? They know we have missiles. I mean, you just shot it into the ocean. Did you hit a reef by any chance? Was that? I think it's insane that we swallow this. Like, well, that's how it has to be. I'm like, that's how it has to be because you have the guns and the money. I don't know that it's entirely avoidable, but I think if people tried harder to really spend some of that money on diplomacy or equalizing, like we talk about the border and all the people streaming north from all points south, not just Mexico, but South America, right? I think stuff is so bad there. And we're like, we need to build a wall to keep them out. And you're like, but the wall, I mean, we've seen zombie movies. The walls don't hold. It might work for a month or a year or 10 years. It doesn't. When things get bad enough, people will kill themselves until there's a pile of bodies high enough to climb over the wall. Like, it's not a solution. It's a band-aid.
Right. And I don't think we'll ever see a point in our lives, definitely, where they're just going to say, well, there aren't any more wars left. There's nobody to be afraid of. So, hey, we can just cut all this. We don't need all this money. It's that expression about how's that expression go when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Yeah. So, we're gonna find an enemy somewhere, but but with Top Gun, I don't,
Is the second one as much of a jingo fest as the first one was? Because the first one was almost. The other thing I remember about the first one was how homoerotic it was. Like, there's a volleyball scene where all were like oiled up and stripped to the waist in their aviators and slapping each other in the ass, and that's great. I mean, okay, but I don't think that it realized it was like, I'm like, this is gay porn at this point. Like,
so in this one, they pay homage to that. They do a football game on the beach, but the difference with this is there are women in the class, so it's not just all men. So you have a couple of women on the beach too, running around, and nothing about it is the guys don't have any shirts on, but the girls aren't like running around in bikinis, so it's not like it's gratuitous or anything. But yeah, so they pay homage and they have to know that people viewed that that original volleyball scene as homoerotic.
I remember even when I watched the first film, I don't think this feels self-aware to me. I think they think it's like, look at what badasses these dudes are. They're really good friends and they love to touch each other's butts.
In this one, they have to have known, unless they haven't paid any attention. They have to be self-aware about that. But one of the things that's funny about it, where it doesn't have the jingoism, I guess, of the original one, because the original one they're fighting against the Russians. In this one, they have to take out. There's this specific, and I don't remember from the first one what they have to do, but in this one
is UFOs.
It's UFOs. Yeah, they have to take it's aliens, so they don't have to have it be a specific country or anything. But no, they have to. There's like a nuclear, build up in this place, and they have to take out this target. They never tell you what the country is, so it's just some nondescript country that they, so you kind of guess it's probably Russia or some other, former Soviet country. What's that?
Do they have Russian accents?
No, you never see any of the, you never hear them speak. You see them as pilots.
So
they do like hand signals. But they've got the thing, so they just completely stay, and they're smart from the standpoint of, hey, we can sell this to every country, and they could just be like, well, it's not, in China they can be like, well, they're not Chinese, or in Russia they could be like, oh, they're probably some other country that we don't like, so they're smart in that regard. But yeah, it's not, it's definitely, and they even do it as like, and maybe this is a message, I don't know, because they tried, when Trump was in office, one of the things was Obama has decimated the military, and the budget went up every year under Obama. So I don't even know if they're trying to make this point or not, but they keep talking about how the planes that they're using to go up against this enemy, it's like they're 5th generation, whatever they are. So it's just like, this is a death mission, almost like our planes aren't as good, that just is to add to the drama. They're probably not making a political.
Well, but it's laughable because
I
think our military is state of the art, is it
not? Yeah, it has to be.
Like, where's the money going?
Yeah, they do a really cool, again, this is corny. They do a really cool thing in the beginning where he is flying and he just goes and kind of steals it. But he's flying it's either an SR-71 Blackbird or whatever, kind of came after that, which is just always, I thought, was a really, really cool plane. But there's a part where he flies that and, he breaks some record of, so many G's or whatever. And I kept, and those aren't fighter planes, but I kept thinking this would be a lot cooler movie if they just flew around in those, the F-18s or whatever it is.
The pilots and being in the cockpit is, I think, of the right stuff too. Hypnotics is adrenaline inducing, and having the camera, that's a natural selling point. You could get an exciting movie about people flying fast planes without the jingo.
Yeah.
The warmongering. I get a dogfight is inherently when the stakes are life and death like that, but
yeah. But so I grudgingly went into it, and I enjoyed it. I would recommend it.
I've heard people say that it's actually a really fun movie, and
and they also keep the plays into the 80s-ness of it as well. It's pretty simple. It's not they don't overcomplicate the story, which I liked. And you've got Jennifer Connelly in it, and you've got John Hamm in it, and so it's well done. But
I love John Hamm, but I think Mad Men he ruined himself sort of, because I can't see John Hamm and not see Don Draper, like he was so iconic in that part, and that was his big thing for so long. And he's funny, and he's a good actor, and I hear him doing voiceover stuff, but he does voiceover stuff and I'm like, oh, it's John Hamm, it's Don Draper. Like, I can't, it's so baked into it now that
one of my favorite things ever, I don't know if I've ever sent this to you or not, but John Hamm and Adam Scott did a thing for Adult Swim. This is probably 10, 12 years old now. uh, called it's called like the greatest event in television history or something like that. And they did a shot for shot remake of the opening credits of Simon and Simon. The two of them as the Simon and Simon characters. So I'll send it to you because it's awesome. But you can watch just the opening credits thing. But they also did it's like a mockumentary basically, but they did like a 30-minute making of them filming it and everything. And like John Hamm gets mad at Adam Scott throughout it. And it's really, really great. I mean, John Hamm is a great comedic actor, you know.
I remember when he was on Saturday Night Live, several years ago now, probably. I'm like, he's funnier than a lot of the cast.
Yeah.
Like they ought to just go ahead and put him on the cast because he's stealing the show again and again.
He's a super talented guy. Yeah. So, okay, let's double back to Frailty. So kind of to wrap up, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the message that the movie tells at the end, but I enjoyed watching it, and I liked that it didn't use gore as cheap cop out. I think it tells the concept of the kids getting sucked into the dad's murderous whatever is compelling, and they needed a twist. So, and the twist is it's all real, which I find that unsettling also. But I mean, yeah, I would say, if you've got HBO Max and you're looking for something weird that's in that kind of wheelhouse, that territory, and it's got McConaughey and Bill Paxton, whom I both like, check it out,
I would,
having watched it.
I was just looking here to see, so I should have looked at this before, but so Bill Paxton has 5 directing credits. He directed an episode of Saturday Night Live, and he did some shorts. Oh wow! You remember this is from 1980? That you remember the Fish Head song? It was a Dr. Demento thing. He directed that video.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that video.
So the only other feature that he directed was The Greatest Game Ever Played. I thought maybe he might have directed some episodes of Big Love, but he didn't apparently. But yeah, I think it's one of these movies that let's see, what I was just looking here to see the number of reviews on IMDb for it. So it's a 7.2 with 83,000 reviews. So I think this is a movie that, just kind of slipped through the cracks. I don't think there's a lot of people that probably are unfamiliar with this movie or have never seen it. Yeah. And for people who are fans of Bill Paxton, which I think would say both of us are, and I like Matthew McConaughey too. I mean, he's he had his periods there where he did a lot of not great stuff, but once he really got to where he was a kind of Academy Award level guy, he's done a lot of good things, and I really think his acting is probably the best overall in this film. But yeah, I think it's as you said, it's more of a thriller and a mystery. It's not if you're not into gore, there's not really, things are implied more than they're shown. So it's a movie I would recommend. I think it's a pretty good one.
Yeah. So check it out. Chris and Chris Talk Movies at gmail.com. That's our handle. We're on the socials. Like, subscribe. Thank you for watching / listening.
This is our 101st episode. So we had our the previous one was the 100th, which was our drunk cast. That's gotten a good reception.
We've done episodes since then.
We have, yeah, but I'm sorry, this is not our 101. I just posted the 101st. I don't know what this one is. I got mixed up, but
Don't.
We had a really good reception to the drunk cast though.
Oh, good.
So yeah.
You have more of an eye on that than I do, but thank you all so much for joining us and listening to us talk about things that we like and don't like.
And I guess so a quick if you got a couple more minutes, where are you at on the Obi-Wan show now? Did you see episode 3 yet?
Episode 3.
Okay, so let's talk about that real quickly.
There are 4 that already came out yet, or no?
I've not seen that one yet, so I've only gotten through 3. Yes,
4 is out. I haven't watched it yet.
Okay, so I haven't watched it either. But so, what did you think of episode 3?
It's weird seeing Darth Vader again, like doing stuff that isn't. I mean, I was going to say isn't canon, but I guess it's canon now. I don't know.
Does it feel fan fiction-y to you? I mean, does it feel
a little bit?
Mhm.
A little bit. Just because he's doing stuff with a lightsaber that I don't know. I don't know how to quite put my finger on it. It feels a little bit like, you should have killed me when you had the chance. And you're just kind of like, what's happening? You found your old mentor, and now you're going to torture him to death because he hurt you, or I don't know. It's just hard to square. I think that overall Lucas handled the transition from Anakin to Vader in an unwieldy way.
Mhm.
I think that I never bought that Anakin. I never bought that transition. That now he's this, this epitome of evil. I didn't feel that shift happening, right?
And where did he get the British accent from? I understand the apparatus and everything would make his voice sound different, but it wouldn't change his accent. I mean, I guess you just kind of have to. And I was completely wrong. I told you
American accent, but he was British, and that was the voice box,
And I told you last week, and I turned out to be completely wrong. I said that James Earl Jones came back. He did not. He's retired, and they used AI to piece the voice, I guess like previous recordings of James Earl Jones.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
It's a computer. It's not just because you can hire a voice actor that can do a flawless, voice actors stand in to do ADR for stuff. Like, you can't afford to get walking back on set. Like, we just don't have that in the budget. We can hire voice actor Magoo over here. And I don't mean to be disparaging. These people are amazing, but they can do as such a passable impersonation of Walken that you get them to do the lines as Walken, and the audience doesn't know the difference. And you can't tell me that there aren't people that can do a flawless James Earl Jones. I've seen footage of people doing stations of James Earl Jones, and you could get them for pennies on the dollar compared to even compared to having a computer like a deepfake program doing it.
Yeah, I guess they still had to, and he's in the credits. I guess they still had to pay James Earl Jones because it's his voice. But they use, and I read an article about that, and then I saw an interview with
they either have to get him back or they have to use existing footage that they already own of his voice, and that's use a program to interpolate that. Okay.
Yeah. I saw an interview with Ewan McGregor from one of the newer Star Wars movies, with Rey and all of that. And there's a part where Obi-Wan speaks to her. You just hear the voice. There's no ghost or anything. And Ewan McGregor said that they took some of Alec Guinness and some of him and combined it together, to do that.
Well, the guy who does, I've seen a voiceover thing of the guy who does, you didn't watch the animated Clone Wars series, right? But
I saw an episode or two, but that's it. Yeah.
Obi-Wan is in that. And the voice actor, who is a very established, well-known guy. There's a documentary about voice work that I think is really good. I'll have to look it up offline and send it to you because I'm spacing exactly on I think it's called, like, I Know That Voice, or maybe I don't know. I don't remember what it's called. but it's an interview with him, and he's talking about getting hired by Disney to be the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And they had already had, these came out after the prequels were released. So you've got, of course, Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan, and then you've also got Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan. And they said basically, you're the genius, you do whatever you want with it. He said, do you want me to do an impersonation of one or the other guy? And they're like, no, we want you to just do your own thing. And so what he did was literally split the difference. And he illustrates it. It's the neatest thing. He says, so you've got Alec Guinness, these are the droids they're looking for. And it's a perfect, Alec Guinness. Or you got the Ewan McGregor, I've got a bad feeling about this. And he does both voices. And you're like, whoa. And then if you've seen the show, then he says, so I just sort of met them halfway, and he starts talking like the Obi-Wan he does in the show. And you really hear him having done both, how he just, like a computer program, just would find something in the middle that evokes both simultaneously. And he's like, I didn't get too creative with it. I just found somewhere right in the middle. And you're like, that's crazy that you can do that. But I guess we have programs that do it now too. Huh?
And it seems like that would to just get a good voice actor to come in and just do it would have to be easier than using, going and finding, here's where he said,
Yeah, but if James Earl Jones is tied to that performance, then that might be then you probably you're buying James, you're having to buy him out of or you have to pay him some point.
Maybe. I don't know.
But in watching it, it didn't chime on my ears. It's like, well, this doesn't sound like Darth Vader.
No.
Writing. It sounds just like him coming through because you put voice modulation on it. All that sounds the same. It's just more like watching him walking around, and why is he chasing Obi-Wan? And
I guess maybe it's just because we have it feels very strange because we have the footage of Darth Vader that we've seen our entire lives. You know what I mean? And it's like, this is how he moves and this is what he does. And then you see that because the suit is perfect and everything, everything just looks exactly right. But it's just, there's something weird about
the original Darth Vader from the first three films and this was just the performance of the guy. He's fairly stiff, and he's fairly low energy, right? Darth Vader doesn't run. Darth Vader, at the most, Darth Vader strides, sort of stalking down the hallway with that cape billowing and that, that breathing happening. But in the stuff we've seen since, he's much more vital, right? At the end of, was it Rogue One?
Rogue One.
He's flashing and hacking, and there's just such a vehemence to him that we've never seen before. We've seen him lift a guy up by the throat, and we've seen him choke people with his mind, and we've seen him have sword fights, but there's an economy to Vader that seems gone in this new Vader.
And much of that had to do with the limitations of what because it was just a guy walking around in a suit.
Fine. I mean, you can say, well, because okay, but you built a character, and now we're revisiting this character, and it feels like fan fiction to me, in part because it's sort of like, well, we wish, that this was the way it was. I'm like, I get it, but you're rewriting the character and
it's a little bit like
something that we're changing now.
It's a little bit like the Yoda that we got in the prequels. And I know it was like, well, he's younger, and all of that, but where we have Yoda, we've always seen Yoda just kind of move, just barely moves, and then he's jumping around and flipping and stuff, and it just seems so weird.
Like the Big Rock Solo, I'm like, no, that's a different character. You've changed the character. Why don't you make it exciting and flashy and awe-inspiring, and stay within the character that you already established with Frank Oz and a puppet?
Yeah.
Why do you have to change the character? And they're like, oh, but the audience is going to love this. Like, no, because you are changing our beloved characters.
Mm-hmm. And that Vader in Empire Strikes Back, in the end of the film, where even Return of the Jedi too, but when he and Luke are fighting, and that's still so thrilling to watch today, I think. And there's not a whole lot to it, as far as Vader doesn't move much
around and sweating and frantically scrambling, and Vader is just always moving forward. He's just striding forward, just flicking that saber around like a pro tennis guy.
Yeah.
Super tennis pros don't run all over the court. I mean, nowadays it's very athletic, but the best tennis players they make you run. They put the ball where you're not, right? And you hit the ball back and they anticipate it and they're already there and they can just kind of whack it back at you without having to like sprint all over the court. And that was Vader. Is like Vader didn't need to scramble around. Vader was one step ahead of you. And when you knew where you were out of reach, he used his mind to pull like a building down on you. He didn't, and there wasn't any like spectacle to it. He didn't at the end of, I enjoyed the end of Rogue One, but it just felt like a different character.
Yeah.
It felt like somebody who was the rage was in control of and Vader never seemed out of control. There was never a Vader from the original movies that seemed like he was never out of, there was never a moment where he wasn't completely in control.
And it's not, like I don't want to sound like the comic book nerd from The Simpsons or whatever. I go into this stuff wanting to love it,
and I feel like The Mandalorian delivered on that. Like I wanted to love The Mandalorian, and I was delighted to find that I did. And
I loved parts of.
They brought some critters and things from but for the most part, and they brought back Boba Fett, who you didn't get. Boba Fett left you wanting more. By the third one, he was dead, and you didn't even see him until the second movie, and he was the screen time was maybe 2 minutes, but so. It wasn't feeling like it was betraying all these characters. They were just exploring parts of the world that were familiar to you, but you hadn't spent any time in.
And I loved parts of the Boba Fett show too, but it was kind of the stuff that I loved was when the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda came back, So I don't know, but all right. So
I'm getting the light.
Okay. So catch us on all the socials and on YouTube.
We don't know
all that kind of stuff
this next time, but we'll do something.
Yeah, we will come up with something. So alrighty.
Unless you have anything else, we will talk to you next week. Okay, we're done.